Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to give my review of WCW Starrcade 1994. Starting off the evening, we go to our first match of the night. It is for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. It is Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Vader. I thought this was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between Jim Duggan and Vader, with Duggan attacking Harley Race. Duggan then unloads strikes on Vader in the middle of the ring. Duggan was keeping the pace of the match. Duggan and Vader both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Vader unloading devastating punches on Duggan. Vader then hits a splash on Duggan as well. Harley Race then attacks Jim Duggan. Duggan then hits a three-point stance on Vader. Vader then gets up, goes for a top rope maneuver, but Duggan counters it with a power slam. Vader then throws Jim Duggan face first into the mat, pins him for the three, and your winner of the match is Vader. Hats off to Vader for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Alex Wright versus John Paul Levesque. Number one, I thought this was a good matchup. It's kind of crazy to see Triple H in a WCW ring. Alex Wright was keeping the pace of the match with Alex Wright hitting the spin kick. Wright then ultimately hits a roll-up on John Paul Levesque, pins him for the three, and your winner of the match is Alex Wright. Hats off to Alex Wright for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the WCW Television Championship. It is Johnny B. Bad versus Arn Anderson. I thought this was a good matchup as well. Back and forth matchup between Johnny B. Bad and Anderson, with Anderson keeping the pace of the match. Johnny B. Bad then unloads strikes on Anderson in the ring. Arn then hits a spine buster on Johnny B. Bad. Johnny B. Bad then hits a sunset flip into a roll-up on Arn Anderson. And then Johnny B. Bad ultimately hits another roll-up on Arn Anderson, pins him for the three, and your winner of the match is Johnny B. Bad. Hats off to Johnny B. Bad for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the Nasty Boys versus Harlem Heat. I thought this was a good matchup as well. Back and forth matchup between the Nasty Boys and Harlem Heat, with the Nasty Boys keeping the pace of the match. But the Nasty Boys ultimately win this match due to disqualification. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Mr. T versus Kevin Sullivan. I thought this was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between Mr. T and Sullivan, with Mr. T unloading devastating strikes on Sullivan. Mr. T was keeping the pace of the match. Dave Sullivan then is here. He hits Kevin with a bag. Mr. T then goes for a cover, pins for the three, and your winner of the match is Mr. T. Hats off to Mr. T for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Avalanche versus Sting. I thought this was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between Avalanche and Sting, with Avalanche keeping the pace of the match. Avalanche then hits a devastating elbow drop on Sting. Avalanche then hits a Avalanche drop on Sting. Sting then unloads punches on Avalanche. The referee sounds for the bell. And your winner of the match by disqualification is Sting. Hats off to Sting for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go to our next match of the night. It is the main event of Starrcade 1994. It is Hulk Hogan versus The Butcher for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. I thought this was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between Hogan and The Butcher, with Hogan keeping the pace of the match. Avalanche and Sullivan are here. Hogan hits a leg drop on Avalanche, pins for the three, and your winner of the match is Hulk Hogan. After the match, Randy Savage makes his way down to the ring. Then Randy Savage attacks Avalanche and Kevin Sullivan, and helping Hulk Hogan. A couple of things I'm going to say about Starrcade 94, but before I get out of here, man. Number one, this was an awful Starrcade. Was not a big fan of this Starrcade at all. I thought the booking for Starrcade 94 was horrendous. Number one, Alex Wright versus John Paul Levesque. A lot of people don't realize that Triple H actually did wrestle for WCW for a small stint of time in the company. The Alex Wright match between Triple H, it was a solid match at best. I think they were really hyping up Alex Wright more than John Paul Levesque at that time. The way they were hyping up Alex Wright, obviously he came over from Germany. He was a younger talent, a talent that was going to be, a future world champion, possibly for WCW. Unfortunately that didn't happen. It was a decent match. Jim Duggan versus Vader, again, it was a decent match at best. Mr. T versus Kevin Sullivan was definitely a match I could have done without. I don't know why they even booked this match, to be honest with you. But it was definitely lackluster and was not needed at all to be booked for this card at all. I would say a lot of the card came down to the main event. But at the end of the day, it was Hulk Hogan versus the Butcher. You're really not going to get a good match out of the Butcher in WCW. I felt like Brutus the Barber's, stint in WCW was really lackluster. It was definitely not the same or even comparable to the run that Brutus the Barber had in his WWE run for sure. But it was an okay Starrcade at best. As far as a rating for WCW Starrcade 1994, I'm going to have to give it a solid 3.5 at best, man. And that's me being generous. I thought this card was really weak. There's a lot of things they could have changed on this card. Like I said, Mr. T versus Kevin Sullivan, definitely lackluster match. So I'm going to have to give WCW Starrcade 1994 a solid rating of a 3.5 at best. But this is my review of WCW Starrcade 1994. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.